right, and welcome in once again to yet another episode of Two Guys and Beer, the podcast where we delve into the history and background of different breweries, talk a little bit about a certain beer, and join us as we take you on the tour of Indeed Brewing Company out of Minneapolis. Today we're going to be drinking the Blue Dream Honey IPA, so got in a mix pack, so if you're looking for a mix pack, that's kind of the one we're going to be looking for. So bring in Shawn Field here to the podcast, and Shawn, we're back yet again. We are now to a baker's dozen. We had the 12 pack last week, but now we get so we had the 12 beers, and now we get the donuts. Is that where we come up with it?
Yeah, we could get the donuts now, I suppose. The baker's dozen. I prefer the beer, but
Well, you got to have something to wash the beer down with.
I don't mind a donut every once in a while. Wash the beer down with a donut.
There we go. Usually I wash it down with pizza, which may or may not be on the agenda yet today too. But I wonder how you could work that into a 13 with the pizza, the square root of pi, with the pie. There it is.
On the side.
Pie. It's a pizza pie. See, now we got it. We took a minute, but we got there.
You know what you're doing.
There we are. So today, episode 13, talking Indeed Brewing Company out of Minneapolis. Been there a couple times. Have been there for a few years, but it's kind of a nice little brewery. Not a huge brewery, but they do have a decent distributorship, I guess, to a certain extent. I don't have specific numbers as far as what they have. They don't have a ton of information out there, but they do have quite a few things that they do push out there, and they do distribute a pretty wide map, that I've seen
them. I've seen them at many different establishments, bars, local bars and taverns, and a lot of liquor stores carry a lot of their products in the liquor stores.
They're definitely through a lot of Minnesota for sure. I was just looking at their map a little bit ago. It's mostly kind of a regional beer. It's very heavy, obviously, through the cities, but and then kind of all throughout Minnesota. The only spot that they really don't have is kind of the southwest corner. So apparently Marshall does not like Indeed. But
what's wrong with Marshall?
Well, I think it almost looks like it kind of follows the interstate. So it might be more of how easy to get there. But there's a couple places that have it on tap, and they sell it in the Milwaukee, Chicago area.
Well, what are they drinking, Marshall? Schmidt?
Well, there is.
That's terrible.
What is the brewery that's down there? Brow Brothers? There is a brewery in Marshall. I'm trying to remember what it is. Brow Brothers, I believe.
I've never been down there. Maybe we'll have to go down there. Another trip.
There we go.
Another brewery, another live broadcast. Well, not a live broadcast, but a podcast episode in a brewery.
Recorded on location.
There we go.
Yeah,
See, you've got the words.
Brow Brothers is the tap room, that brew pub that is in Marshall. So, but yeah, if nothing else, we'll head down there. We'll try to see what's going on. Ask them what the problem is. What's your issue with our good beers here? But there's also all over the place in North Dakota too. But that's about as far as it goes. So it's mostly just kind of upper Midwest. So if you're listening, unfortunately in Texas, our friends from Texas that have listened in to multiple episodes, reach out to us, make a comment on social media. Maybe we'll send you, because we're not allowed to, but we'll figure something out. We'll get you hooked up, with something there. So, and if there's anybody in Florida, let me know, because I might just go to Florida for spring training for the Twins.
There we go.
Because why wouldn't I?
Bring some Indeed beer right down there for them.
Absolutely. So we'll get that set up out there. So if you can't find it, maybe just pick your random honey IPA if you're able to find one. I'm kind of interested because it's a honey IPA. Usually I've seen honey. I've seen some honey ales or some honey lagers, but not like the full IPA to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So it's going to be kind of interesting to be able to check that one out. So best part of the podcast, first and foremost.
Ooh, here we go. It's my favorite part. That's such a good sound.
Oh, it's just
soothing.
Amazing.
So soothing.
It's just amazing. It's almost, I do like it. I almost prefer bottled beer just because I like, the glass and
the clinging and the clinking.
I do like that, but the pop and the top on a can, just that last, when it actually releases, you get the first initial, but when it actually pops, I do love that sound. It is a good sound.
Music to my ears. Very soothing.
Absolutely. So this is, I mentioned a honey IPA. Try to get it where I can read it. It's printed sideways on there, so I should have grabbed a second one so I could read it, or maybe just read it beforehand. But it's fine. Notes of citrus, honey, and pine. Citrus and honey, not terribly surprising because it is a Blue Dream Honey IPA. They do use some more citrusy type of hops in with this one. But the pine will be I think that'll be kind of part of the IPA portion, but also just kind of adding to some of that type of flavor to it. So that'll be kind of interesting to have in there.
I've noticed here too, is the beer as it pours pretty light. It's a pretty light amber looking color. It's not a dark amber. Like IPAs are usually darker looking beers. This one's actually a pretty light looking beer, like a lager as you pour it into a glass. And
this one, by the numbers, we like to go through the numbers as we get the start going here. The ABV is 6.4% for this 12-ounce can. I don't have what was the other one? The EDC? Was that the number that you had?
That is the color of the beer, the EDC. Yeah.
I do not have that number handy on this one particularly, but the IBUs is a 65. So a little higher, but I mean, that's an IPA. You're going to have, the number's going to be moving that direction. So
theoretically, it should be fairly bitter than at 65.
Well, let's find out.
We'll see. Interesting.
It's definitely an IPA, but there's a flavor that's very distinct that I'm trying to put my finger on because there's a little bit of a honey flavor to it, and I can kind of see where they're getting the pine from to a certain extent, a little citrusy. A little bit. But there's it's going to drive me nuts. There's a very distinct flavor that's right there in the middle.
See, I'm not getting the honey flavor at all on this. I can't taste. I can taste the citrusy a little bit. I can definitely tell the pine. The IBU of
maybe
the 65.
Maybe it's just the pine that I'm getting. Maybe it's just the pine. But
I'm not getting it. For an IBU of 65, this doesn't seem that bitter to me at all.
No, it's not too bitter at all.
Which, really, that IBU rating is a theoretical rating.
Right.
But theoretically, the higher the number, of course, the bitter it is. But this is not a bitter beer at all. And it goes down real light.
Yeah.
It's a real light IPA. So if you're not a typical IPA drinker, this would be one you definitely want to try because it is super light. It almost drinks like a light beer, pretty much.
I think the flavors that I'm kind of getting are almost some of the, if you've ever gone to, how do I put it, a slightly more upscale establishment or like on a cruise, you don't order just like a gin and tonic and you get, like a rail gin with some whatever tonic on the gun or something like that. Like you're going to get like good tonic water from like a Fever Tree or something, and you're going to get like Kendrick's gin or something like that. But you're also going to get like a bunch of aromatics. They're going to put some spices in there. They're going to put some star anise in there. They're going to put some peppercorns in there, some things like that. And gins, usually people that don't like gin, I don't necessarily get a lot of it, but people that don't like gin, it tastes like pine needles to them. I can see where like the pine type of flavor is there, but I'm getting almost some of those aromatics that you would get with some of that kind of the earthy kind of, maybe that's just what they're describing as the pine. And I just learning how my taste buds work, but that's kind of almost where like I'm getting kind of that aromatic type of flavor to it, the flav, if you will.
Sure. So, yeah, I'm kind of getting the pine and kind of the aftertaste. I've been doing a lot of traveling and going in a lot of woods high up in the mountains, and it kind of has a pine smell up in the high mountains in the Appalachians and like the Carolinas. And that's what I'm kind of getting on the aftertaste in here is the smell when I was walking up there. It's kind of the aftertaste on here, that kind of slight pine type flavor on the aftertaste. I'm still not picking up any of the honey, but the citrus I can tell. Are you getting any of the honey yet, or am I just crazy here?
Just a very faint little bit, and maybe it's just because it says honey, and so my mind is thinking that. But maybe that's what's kind of cutting some of the bitterness. Maybe that's what's kind of, it's less of flavor and it's more just kind of a smoother. Is that the right way to be able to put it? I'm sure Brandon is probably listening and judging me right now. I was like, no, it's not that word. It's this word. But that's kind of almost, it's kind of what it seems like it's doing in a way.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. The honey taking away some of the bitterness with the higher IBU rating for sure.
So, yeah, it's pretty good though. I like it.
Yeah, I would drink another can of this for sure, or two.
Blue Dream Honey IPA. So, Indeed Brewing, that's what we're talking about today.
Indeed.
That
sounded like a radio voice.
Indeed. This Christmas. I don't know.
Brought to you by Culligan.
Well, you got to source the water somehow.
Right. That's where it comes from.
It'd be really tough to be able to do it here. I got some rough water to be able to work with. I'm going to have to up my order from Culligan. Let's see here. Indeed Brewing Company, cultivating a artfully eclectic lineup of beers from the heart of Minneapolis and Milwaukee. So that's news to me. I'm familiar with the tap room in Minneapolis, kind of in the northeast area. It's in a way kind of tucked back just a little bit. It's kind of like a block or two from, I don't remember what school it is, but it's in kind of a nice little area, kind of back from everything. But it's, I don't know, it was at least in the summertime when I was there the one time. See if I can't find what school or park it's by. Maybe it's just by a park, and I just ran by there. A lot of these like I'm familiar with because we did for the longest time, me and my wife and some other family members would do, we were involved with an organization, and I say involved, like we went and did it, the Brewery Running Series. They do a 5K. It's like a 5K-ish. It's not really like an exact 5K. Sometimes it's a little bit short, not usually longer, but sometimes like a block or two short. But it's not really timed. You time yourself. They just have an archway you kind of run through. It's more getting out and being able to experience things. You know what I mean? Going to different breweries. The registration comes with, like a beer or two, depending on which one you're going to and how you register. Lots of really cool things. And
they still do it? Is it still going on?
It started. Now it's, if they're listening, if Morgan or, Nate are listening, they're going to judge me for not having all of the information here. But it started, I want to say, either last year or 2 years ago was their 10-year anniversary. And my wife Amanda was actually at the first one that they did at Fulton, at Fulton Brewery in Minneapolis as part of, it was an international or national run for beer day. And so it was like on like a Wednesday or something weird.
Seems like a lot of work though. Run for beer.
It kind of does to a certain extent. But, they say that beer in moderation, that's what they always, get you with that one, that it's actually a really good recovery drink for people that run because it's got a lot of things to it. Like it's not just water. Like it does have some flavors, but it also has nutrients and other stuff to be able to help with recovery. So it's actually kind of a good thing to be able to add with that. But yeah, they're a little bit more than a decade in. They started, like I said, just a handful of events, through the summer or whatever. And we've gone to, we've peaked a couple of years ago. I think that I've just become too busy to make it to too many of them. I think I went to about 5 or 6 of them last year. I signed up for 12 and went to about half of them. Just, you run out of time. But it's a great organization, but they're fantastic. But they do probably 60 of them a year.
In Minnesota here?
Maybe it's less than 60.
Countrywide or what?
So it originally started in Minneapolis. It was Nate and Morgan started it just in Minneapolis, just doing it locally here. It is expanded into, like I said, not 60, but quite a few. I think it's probably close to maybe 50 different runs they do throughout the course of the year. They start in like April and they go all the way through. There's a beer dash at the beginning of December that they do. That one's always the funnest one because for the longest time it was a 0.5K. So it was like, and it was actually between
car to the door.
But it was between two breweries. So you actually started at one, ran to the other one, and then you would have to run back to complete the 0.5K. So it was phenomenal. But yeah, so they've expanded like quite a bit here, but then they've also had some friends and family members that have been involved in that have moved to different places, and now they're in a whole pile of different states. They're in well, at least they were. You'd have to check out their website for like the current information, but they're in probably 15 states now. They're becoming very nationwide.
That's
Wisconsin,
cool.
Colorado, Iowa. They were in Hawaii for a little bit. I actually did probably
Hawaii.
2 or 3 of them in Florida when I'd go down for a cruise. It would time out that we would have like a run like either the day before or the day after a cruise. And so we'd go and do a 5K and drink beer and just be on vacation.
Wow.
It was
nice.
It was a lot of fun. It was really cool. But, they're a great, they donate basically like, I mean, they pay for what they're doing, but like beyond that, the proceeds go to like local nonprofits for a whole bunch of different things. So
that's nice when people give back on events like that.
It's very.
So these runs they do, is it for a specific brewery or is it just random runs they put together that go from brewery to brewery or brewery to bar?
No, it's usually at one brewery and you just run out, whether it's a loop or an out and back or something like that. So like this one for Indeed, you probably run by like 2 or 3 different breweries just because Northeast you can't throw a rock in any direction without hitting a brewery.
Well, do you take a little break and kind of detour into one for a pint and then back out on the track?
It's not not part of
course.
It's not part of it, but I'm not going to say that it didn't happen at all. But you got to make sure you have your watch with the Apple Pay or the Garmin Pay to be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's just you just run on the city streets. They don't close the streets. They usually have volunteers working for corners to be able to turn and you know where you're going. But otherwise, they don't close the streets, so you're kind of just running on the sidewalks and things like that. But
trying to dodge traffic.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a giant game of Frogger, so they want you to try the beer afterwards.
I mean, it is Minneapolis, so you're kind of dodging a little bit of everything these days.
You're kind of getting into a lot there.
But it's worth it when you're drinking beer. Absolutely.
So, they're kind of down. It's a Logan Park is the one that's kind of next to Indeed here. So, but yeah, it was a Brewery Running Series. One of the first times that I, was there. But it's kind of a nice little tap room. It's not like a massive, like you think like a Surly or a Coors. Not that Coors has a tap room, but you know what I'm saying? Like a massive tap room area. They have a decent sized tap room there in Minneapolis. And especially in the summer, it's a really nice area to be able to sit outside. They usually have like food trucks and some music and stuff. And they actually have on their wall like hops growing up the side of the wall. It's kind of an older brick building that's down there. Cool. Yeah, it's a really cool kind of deal. It's a lot of fun. Solar Arts Building, I think is what it's called. But it's let's see here, Northeast 15th Avenue in Quincy in that area. So kind of northeast-ish of Minneapolis, Northeast Park, just on the other side of the railroad. So yeah, it's kind of a cool, little place or whatever, kind of in that area. But it's your brewery and tap room in the Solar Arts Building located in the Logan Park neighborhood of Northeast Minneapolis, which is a lot to say because I thought the Northeast was the neighborhood of Minneapolis. So it's the neighborhood within the neighborhood of the city, which is a neighborhood.
In Northeast.
Yes.
Minneapolis.
And then a pilot brewery and tap room located in Walker's Point neighborhood of Milwaukee. So I've been to Milwaukee a handful of times, but I have not been there. I did not know that they had one there. So
never been there in Milwaukee either.
Maybe this year I'll have to road trip because, so now we're going to Milwaukee. We got to go. Yeah,
Mob Craft is out in Milwaukee. Yep. Now we got Indeed out in Milwaukee.
And then we were talking about there was something in Chicago we were going to maybe go and try to hit on the way to Kansas City. And then onto Shells on the way back.
Right, but I forgot what's in Chicago. But we'll find some beer in Chicago, I'm sure. I mean,
Goose Island is in Chicago.
Goose Island,
so I'm totally in for that. So that's a fantastic option for sure.
But now we need all the listeners and beer meisters out there to hold us to this stuff. We're going to talk about it all we want. You always make all these plans, but they never come to fruition. So
exactly,
we need to do it.
Keep us honest on this. Reach out on the social media platforms. Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, YouTube, Rumble.
Whatever you can leave a comment on.
Are you on Rumble personally? I need to delve into that a little bit more. I know it's
YouTube. It's just a YouTube. It's just called Rumble.
Okay. So I know precious little about that.
It's not like you're on it. Like YouTube, you're not really on YouTube. You can make a YouTube account, subscribe to people's channels and videos. Rumble is basically the same thing.
You mean YouTube isn't just for how-to videos to figure out how to do plumbing and watch music videos all day long while you should be working?
That's what I do, is watch music videos. I watch a lot of Dale Earnhardt Jr. I'm a big NASCAR fan, of course. You know that.
Yep,
the listeners probably don't, but I watch a lot of Dale Earnhardt Jr. podcasts.
Yeah.
If Dale Jr. download.
If you weren't aware of this, go back and check out the episode with Mobcraft where we have the advent calendar and check out what number Shawn picks first.
If you can tell me what number that is and why I picked that number, I'll send you a free hat.
There we go. So opportunity right there to be able to get some swag from Two Guys in Beer podcast. So reach out to us on the social media, get yourself a hat. So it's a really nice hat too.
It's a really nice hat.
So let's see, where were we at? Indeed. That's where we're
Indeed,
at.
Yep.
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Blue Dream Honey IPA. That's what we're drinking.
So Indeed Brewery, a microbrewery is what they listed as, Logan Park area of Northeast Minneapolis. Founded in 2011. So it's been around for, 2023 now. So 12-ish years, 12, 13, depending on, what time of year. But it kind of a nice little area. And again, it's a really nice kind of tap room that they got. Founded by friends Thomas Weisenhand, Rachel Anderson, and Nathan Burnt. The three brought in Josh Bischoff, which the name sounds familiar to me. If it maybe sounds familiar to you.
Sounds like a wrestler.
It does. It's related to Eric Bischoff. There we go. I don't know if there's any relation. We'll have to do more information. We'll do a deep dive when we go on location in Milwaukee.
It wouldn't be too surprising if he was related to Eric Bischoff, because if you're a wrestling fan, a lot of wrestlers came out of Minnesota.
This is true.
So
this is true. Not just Vern Gagne.
Right.
Multiple.
Lots, yeah.
So Josh Bischoff, a former head brewer at Town Hall Brewing in Minneapolis, which if you've ever been to Town Hall Brewing, they don't distribute a ton, at least not that I've been able to find, but it's a really cool tap room, really good food. It's a lot of stuff. It's kind of in the, what do they call it? The Seven Corners area of like Washington Avenue, just past, like if you're going southbound 35W, you're going to go to like US Bank Stadium. If you go left instead, you go east over the top of the bridge.
Sure.
There's that neighborhood that's right on that other side.
Yeah,
they're kind of right in that corner in one of the, like, it's like, I think it's like a hotel building or something that they're kind of in, but
sure.
Only been there once, but it was fantastic. So they had really good beer. And at one point I had a hat from there and it was a nice hat, but then my dog chewed it. I don't have the hat anymore, so I got to go back.
It's a good reason to go back.
There we go.
And I have not been there yet, so I'll go with you.
There we go. That can be the first stop on the road trip.
That sure will be.
Because you got to stop somewhere to be able to make sure you're refreshed and ready to go.
You're correct.
Preparation is the key to victory. So in August of 2012, Indeed's tap room officially opened to the public and began distributing kegged beer to bars and restaurants. So we're talking August 2012 is kind of when things really... that's when things really got going. 2011 is when it was founded, but 2012 is when it really started, kicking off. October 2012, they were canning and distributing their two flagship beers, Day Tripper American Ale and Midnight Rider American Black Ale. Now, when you talk about some of those different beers, you look at their website, they show the different beers that, when you can get them and limited time. So it kind of goes through that, but there's a nice little graph that they have that it talks about the different beers. And there are 5 beers that they have that are year round. They have kind of a release schedule.
One
but
you said again?
Day Tripper Pale Ale.
Day Tripper Pale Ale.
That is one of their most popular ones, and you can get that just about any liquor store. That's if they only carry one, that's likely the one that they're going to be carrying. A lot of them that are released year round: Flavor Wave IPA, Pistachio Cream Ale, Mexican Honey Imperial Lager. That one's a pretty good one. It's, again, you don't get a ton of the honey, but it's very light. There's the Mexican Honey Light Lager and the Mexican Honey Imperial Lager. So a couple of different flavors with that, but some very light drinking summertime kind of beers, but they release those year round. So those are the 5 that they have. The pistachio one, I think that I've had before, but I do like the Day Tripper pretty good. That's one of their most popular ones. That one, they won some awards with that one. So, but otherwise they have a whole list of them online that they have of what they do, when they have it, when it is going to be available. The core, you can even switch over to what the IPA options are as far as what you want to be able to find there. So lots of information you can get on their website with that. So liquor stores in the area, Minneapolis, St. Paul area. Indeed was one of 13 breweries to open in 2012 after a legislative bill allowed the creation of tap rooms for breweries to serve beer on site. So this is going to, we would go back to the
important
antiquated laws that Minnesota has had, and we can get into a whole lot of that drama. And that's a whole different left turn.
A lot of them, and they still exist in this state.
But especially when it comes to alcohol and beer and brewing and things like that, there's still a lot of stuff that's on there. But this was one of the, I don't know what to call it, landmark, but this was one of the step in the right direction kind of things where they allowed for breweries to be able to actually sell their stuff on site. They didn't have to just can it, which gets into, to a certain extent, yes, it's a bar with hard quotation marks, but at the same time, it's just kind of a nice place to be able to hang out. But from a brewery standpoint, it kind of reduces, we talked a little bit on one of our episodes about, okay, so now we're going to brew all this stuff. Now we have to buy equipment to can it or bottle it and have that inventory. And until that actually sells, now we just have inventory sitting in liquor stores, which is a huge investment in something like that.
Yeah, this costs money too. The more inventory you have, the more money it actually costs businesses. So.
Oh, absolutely. And it seems like it's good when you have it everywhere. But yeah, if you're still paying for that, because some places, some vendors, depending on who it is, and we've had some experience in some retail over the course of our years.
Too much experience.
Absolutely. Some vendors, they don't actually get paid until it sells. They still wholly own it until it actually sells. I mean, maybe they'll get like a certain percentage of it, but there's some of that goes on too. So there's a chance that like they would end up just having it sit there because they're trying to get the word out, trying to promo it. But a liquor store is like, well, I'm not going to buy it, but I'll let you sell it here. Like, so now you have that much more that you're not even getting money for distributing to a certain extent. So that was kind of a landmark step in the right direction. So in 2012, that changed for the state of Minnesota. So one of the first breweries in the state to open, which featured a tap room to sell on-site beer right at the start of operation. So pretty solid step in the right direction at that point in time. November 2018, they announced an expansion to Milwaukee and in the Walker's Point neighborhood, and it eventually opened in September of 2019. So,
that's an interesting place to expand to. You open up in Minneapolis, your next expansion is 7 hours away in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Like, why so far away and why in Milwaukee? Why not somewhere closer within the state of Minnesota or maybe 2 hours away or an hour away, but instead you go all the way to Milwaukee?
And was it Mobcraft that we talked a little bit about? They expanded, but they expanded close to where they were.
They did.
That way they could centralize all of their production, but use tap rooms to be able to kind of distribute it a little bit wider.
Yeah.
So, that's a good point that it's, a little bit more of a distance that goes in with that.
I mean, you've got distribution, and getting the beer out there. You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess to a certain extent, you can just jump on 94 and set the cruise at about 104 and just go.
True.
I suppose
if it's not under construction
with a beer truck, well, that's a good point.
It's always under construction.
6 hour drive. Google Maps says it's 9.5 hours. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, it gets kind of a direct route, but if they set up their own facilities over there, but then
if maybe they brew out there.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably an additional expansion. Or potentially they're getting into that Milwaukee area, trying to get a foothold with, a larger distributorship with Miller Coors.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, if you can partner with them, for sure.
History of Indeed, kind of going back a little bit, going back to July 2013. So in 2019, they opened in Milwaukee. 2018, they planned to, but 2019, they opened it. But if you go back to 2013, $250,000. We just talked on an episode recently about a $25 million expansion, but a little bit smaller microbrewery. You know what I mean? So it's we're not talking a massive brewery here. 2013, a $250,000 expansion. They actually have a note in here that in 2013 it was $250,000, but if you account for inflation in today's dollars, actually 2022 dollars, it was $314,000. Because you want to make sure to have room for inflation when you're looking.
Such a jump.
So they announced that with the aim of doubling their capacity to 6,400 barrels per year. So a pretty good jump when you're jumping from 3,200 to 6,400.
And what time frame was this again? They opened in 2012. They wanted to increase that to 6,400 by when?
This was July of 2013.
So within a year.
That's when it was announced. And let's see here. In August of 2013, they reported they were on track to brew over 6,000 barrels by the end of 2013.
Okay, nice.
So, so they built
within
quick.
A year, maybe a year and a half, we'll say.
Yeah, so they really took off pretty well. They're kind of in the mid 2010s, I guess, if you will. Brews are now available in over 300 bars, restaurants, and liquor stores throughout the Twin Cities metro area. They further expanded to distribute outstate, or as they say, greater Minnesota.
Sure, and it's real great.
At least that's what the metro likes to say.
And to get back, you said how many barrels? 6,000?
Yeah, at the end of 2013, they went 6,000 barrels. Their capacity was going to be 6,400.
So 6,000 barrels, of course, as we learned before, times 31 gallons per barrel, that's 186,000 gallons of beer. It's a lot of beer.
I've probably been a part of a handful of those gallons.
Andy likes to partake in the beer drink.
It's true. It's, you don't come up with, the plan to have a podcast like this. And actually, I didn't even come up with the plan. It was more you came up with the plan. But, you don't be a part of this if you don't have an enjoyment or a desire to enjoy some
adult beverages.
Yeah. Let's see here. Some more information about Indeed Brewery. Again, we're doing the Blue Dream Honey IPA. I didn't see it, at least at the liquor store here. Maybe if you're more in the Twin City metro area, they'll have a little bit wider selection of specific ones, 6-packs or 4-pack tall boys or something like that. This one was part of a mix pack. So there's 4 different beers in there. I think they were all IPAs, but it was more so I was going for the variety, to be able to try some different things. So that's kind of where I found this one. Yeah, exactly. We'll try another one of the other ones here after we get done recording, because there's football.
Perfect. So I got to ask you a question.
I got an answer.
You always have an answer. If those of you listeners don't know, Andy always has an answer.
Not always is the right answer, but
it is.
I'm going to say it is. I can make up some good.
After you drink a few Indeed Brewing beers, after you drink a few Blue Dream Honey IPAs, the answers are always correct.
Yep, they're flowing. They're ready to go.
So you did mention before that, as we were talking before we started recording, how Indeed was incorporating THC into some beer. Mm-hmm. So you might be getting to that, but I just want to bring that up now because as I stare at this can of Blue Dream Honey IPA, Blue Dream sounds like a strain of THC that people would consume.
It does.
If you look at the can, it's kind of like splattered with green and blue on it, and a spirograph or...
It is kind of a 70s vibe.
Those 70s vibe things. Well, if you look at the top of the can where it says Brewing Indeed Company, it's almost like it's meant to monkey with your eyeballs a little bit. Like you put on the red and blue glasses.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the 3D bit without the 3D deal.
Yes. So I was wondering about the THC infusement. I know this beer does not have THC infusement, but the can makes it almost as like it would. When you look at the can, it kind of messes with your vision.
When you started asking that, I started looking closer at the can.
Have another beer, Andy.
There we go. I'd get some infused stuff going. Yeah, no, he didn't say anything on there or whatever, but they're usually, like when I was at the liquor store selecting my options for the evening, there were a bunch that did have THC, but they were very abrupt about making sure that
Here in town?
Yep, here in town.
Really?
Yep, they had a whole display section that was there that had that. I don't think any of it was refrigerated at the time, so I didn't really want to get into that. But, they had a whole selection of THC-infused beers that were right there. So
Interesting.
I have not had one, so I don't know how the flavor profile changes with that, but not necessarily opposed, just...
Maybe it's a beer for the future podcast someday.
There we go.
Who knows?
With all of the road trips, now we have that going on as well. So,
I don't know if we want to drive if we have alcohol and THC at the same time.
This is true. So
I don't really know from experience, but that just doesn't seem like a great idea.
It sounds an awful lot like what's going to have to happen is we're going to, if you answer the next trivia question, you can be our driver on this.
Perfect.
I don't think we're going to get
anybody that's under 21.
Yep.
Anybody out there? Anybody?
Exactly. Yeah. You can't partake. So just, you can be part of the fun. Yeah, so there is a selection, at least at the local liquor store here, of some THC ones.
Interesting. I didn't realize that was so wide.
Yeah,
THC. I know Minnesota passed it this year, but really you're not supposed to sell it till 2025. So it's kind of surprising to me that they have that in like a local liquor store.
Yeah, it's and it's I don't know what the numbers are on it as far as how potent it is or anything like that, but yeah, I was kind of surprised to see it out already as well because it's just been kind of a quick change.
Yeah.
In a way.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I guess I didn't see any THC Indeed ones there. But again, I didn't spend a lot of time looking at that particular rack of beer. It was more getting back to the beers that I was going to have with this. But like you said, that'll probably be a future episode.
I just asked
we'll get out
the
there.
Can.
Oh, absolutely. The Indeed does have
kind of goes with that vibe, Oh,
100%. That the logo at the top definitely has kind of that little offset that kind of makes you think that things are a little hazy, if you will. So, yeah, kind of a different. But that's probably just kind of what they're looking at. But yeah, Blue Dream does kind of allude to something. Somebody with more knowledge within that realm might be able to give some feedback on that one. Again, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, just text me.
Let us have it.
Yeah, just send me a message on it, whatever.
Just text Andy.
Exactly.
I'll give you his number.
So in 2014,
876-930. What is it? 8765309.
There we go. It's apparently somebody did actually have that number, and they're like, "This is just awful."
Who is this singer?
It is.
I'm sorry, I'm getting off track.
Tommy. I don't remember what it is.
You seriously know?
No, I don't know off the top of my head. I know that the song is actually called Jenny Jenny, but I don't know who is it that sings it. Tommy Two-Tone. I did say so. I thought it was Tommy, but I couldn't. I didn't think Tommy Two-Tone was actually a name. So
Tommy Two-Tone.
Tommy Two-Tone.
Perfect.
So yeah, if you knew that trivia answer before, maybe you hit pause to try to get the answer or something.
You hit pause because you had to go grab another Indeed Blue Dream Honey IPA.
Exactly. You had to go get another one. Crack that top. We'll give you a second. Are you ready? Okay.
All right.
And carrying on.
What's next for the Indeed Brew? What do you got?
So the further expansion to Outstate 2014. In 2014, they also won a silver medal at the Great American Beer Festival, which I would be willing to venture a guess is a pretty large thing. It's held in Denver, typically held in late September, early October. And it's at the Denver, Colorado Convention Center. It's the largest ticketed festival. So,
well, we might be going to Colorado next.
There we go. Largest ticketed beer festival in U.S. and one of the largest in the world. So
perfect.
We're going to have to put that on the list of our road trip.
Hey, no. The two guys in beer private plane is fueling up right now.
The jet.
Yes,
we're gonna get the jet going. I suppose we haven't stretched those wings in a little bit.
Not enough. Yeah.
We're gonna have to get that out.
They're pretty stretched.
So at that particular event, the Mexican Honey Imperial Lager in 2014 won a silver medal. So pretty good result for that one. I thought that the Day Tripper had some medals, but they don't list it on here as well.
Day Tripper.
They have
is that infused with THC?
They probably have some that are. It's
Tripper.
not original.
Maybe mushrooms or acid.
There we go.
I don't know anything about either one of those two substances, but Day Tripper sounds like it's infused with something.
Or just a lot of wires that are tied on low spaces that you fall over.
Watch out where you're walking.
Trip, slip, and fall. Watch your videos. You got to be safe at work. Let's see here. They also revealed a series of wood-aged sour beers that they had developed in a separate facility.
Okay, we need to try one of those. I want to try a sour beer.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked about that with the shells.
We're going to do it at shells, but we should probably do one sooner than later because I'm very intrigued with these sour wheat beers, sour wood-aged beers. I'm intrigued by them.
Yeah, and I don't mind. I never was the biggest sour beer. I actually had a sour beer the other night or whatever, and it was part of the Mobcraft bit. It was so sour. Oh my God. I had to almost shotgun the thing just to only have that sour hit me once. It's fine. Don't worry. Just watching football, no big deal. But no, I mean, the wood aged definitely change. I feel like it would change how it tastes.
Sure.
And add something to that. Because, I mean, it does obviously for bourbon. It does for a lot of different things. So I feel like it'd be an interesting thing to do. So they expanded their current offerings in 2020, creating Quincy's Corner in Northeast Minneapolis. And the expansion of their tap room offered various sundries and vinyl collections. So they've kind of taken over most of that building that they have there. So kind of a fun deal. Their current production, what they estimate is 11,500 barrels. So
nice.
We talked a little bit before about them trying to expand to a capacity of 6,400. Clearly, they have exceeded that and moved forward to now more recently 11,500.
Which would be 356,500 gallons of beer.
I was trying to do the math in my head, and I only had it about 354, so I was way off.
Your arithmetic needs to improve.
Yeah, we're going to have to practice that in between. I usually only count 12 ounces at a time. It's 12, 24.
That's the way to count.
Exactly. It's better than, what's it, the local radio guy, big Detroit Lions fan, they learned how to count 0-1, 0-2, 0-3.
Well, until this year, anyways.
Exactly. But, yeah, it's been a tremendous year for them. That's for sure. So, do you think the Vikings have any chance? This episode is going to actually come out probably after some of this happens, but it should be an interesting finish to the year for everybody.
I don't even want to talk about the Vikings. If they would not turn the ball over, they would probably be one of the top 5 teams in the NFL.
Oh, just,
And I get turnovers happen. If they reduce their turnovers in half,
Even by a quarter.
They probably would
depending
only
on
have
the
2 or
timeliness
3
of them.
losses.
And the problem is that it's not even so much, I mean, yes, it's the turnovers, but the time that they happen and then what happens, like, there's the interception where he threw it off the face mask and right into the bread basket of a defensive lineman. For real? That's what we're doing now?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're not going to get too deep into that one. Otherwise, we're going to need probably 3-4 more, which I'm not opposed to either.
No,
but that's kind of what I have here for the Indeed Brewing Company. If you got more information, definitely hit us up or any questions. But that's the Blue Dream Honey IPA. Shawn, you got anything else on tap?
The only thing I've got, I was thinking I wanted to ask you about. We'll go back to a little bit of sports, of course, because naturally that's what's easy for us. Draymond Green. We're going to the NBA this time. Last time, what did we talk about prior?
The Kardashians.
Oh, that's right. That wasn't too sportsy, was it? Well, we're going to talk about the NBA this time.
Fair enough.
We're going to go
that's a much better topic.
Across the league, across half the country over to California and Golden State, and Draymond Green suspended for the year. It's about damn time.
Yes, I completely agree.
Sick of his antics. It is ridiculous.
He is, if you're of a certain generation, you'll probably understand this. Shawn, I would expect you would understand my reference here. He is the modern day Rasheed Wallace.
Oh,
but
for sure.
I liked Rasheed more.
Rasheed was probably a better overall player than Draymond Green. And I like Draymond Green to the point where he's super passionate. When he's out on the court, nobody plays harder than him. He goes 100% from tip-off to the end of the horn at the end of the game.
Or when he gets kicked down.
But holy cow, dude, you don't need to be choking people and punching people and slapping people. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
this isn't the 1980s NBA. If this was the 80s NBA, that would be the norm.
Yeah.
This is 2023. They're all kind of girly, I guess I should say. They're not girly, but
it's not as much of a
NBA
physical
is
game.
not physical like it once was. You cannot choke people. You cannot punch people in the face.
You're not going down the middle of the lane and having Bill Lambier throw an elbow into your eye socket.
Or clothesline you.
It's just not happening.
You jump up and they just clothesline you straight to the floor.
Oh, foul, personal foul. All right, shoot 2. Here we go.
Like, what is he doing? Like, I don't understand what he's doing.
I think he kind of has that sense about him that everybody's out to get him and everybody's trying to work against him, which, I mean, that's kind of the nature of competition to a certain extent, that everybody's trying to limit what you're doing and work against you. But at the same time, he's just taking things way too far. Everything is taken too personally.
Right.
It's like, why would you oppose anything I'm doing? It's like, well, because you're being kind of a jerk.
Right. Yeah, it's just insane. And it's too bad because he's a pretty decent basketball player overall.
Yep.
Like, he's not your number 1 or number 2, but 2 years ago, he was dang near averaging a triple-double, like 16, 11, and 10 or something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but he's a pretty solid guy.
Oh, absolutely. He's a guy that you want to have on your team as far as like if you have like postseason or championship type of aspirations, because he's going to add a little bit of grit. He's going to add some grinding, if you will, to, like there's some dirty work that has to be done. You can't just, we talked about the NBA being a little bit soft. That's absolutely a fact that I don't think anybody really can deny, but you still have to have a couple of people, 1 or 2, especially on your squad, that have that ability to, like, there's some dirty work that needs to be done, a little bit of grinding to be done. You have to have a little bit of that just to, if nothing else, keep some stuff in check, but also just go and get some like difficult shots, difficult rebounds. Like, there's moments where you're going to need that. And he's always been a guy for that, but now the other stuff is starting to exceed what he was doing. And maybe he's doing all the exact same stuff, but I think I heard that on the radio earlier. They were talking about that maybe he's having the same amount of antics, but the difference is now his production isn't overshadowing that.
Right.
And so now it's like all you see is the antics.
It's definitely, his production is definitely going down. Let me throw this at you. He kind of reminds me, as we were talking about it, Dennis Rodman. I mean, Dennis Rodman maybe never had the scoring production or the assist production, but defensively, tenacity, hustle, heart, aggressiveness. That was Dennis Rodman. I mean, Dennis Rodman
absolutely.
easily played better defense than Draymond Green and obviously grabbed more rebounds, but the antic type part of it, that kind of reminds me of a Dennis Rodman type almost.
Oh, absolutely. I think that there's a lot of things that, you could make a comparison with, Dennis Rodman, Rasheed Wallace, like those kind of guys. But I feel like, especially in Dennis Rodman's case, I feel like, of course, I think he had more other things going on in his world, that when he like reached a certain point of like where the production wasn't quite there, he's like, I'm done. This doesn't mean as much to me. So I'm just going to go and do whatever else. I'm just going to go and have meetings with Kim Jong, whichever one is in charge of North Korea at the particular time.
Which is what he did.
Which is, if that's what
not
you're
to
do,
mention, if you watch The Last Dance, you didn't need to watch The Last Dance if you're a basketball fan in the 90s. He just took a week sabbatical in the middle of the season and went to Las Vegas and partied.
Yeah.
That was just what he did. He's like, I need to go party for a week. So they're like, okay, just make sure you're back in a week.
Exactly. Yeah. It was load management. Right. That's what it was. It was load management.
What type of loads was he managing?
Well, probably not.
Was it Indeed beard loads?
Well,
not back then.
No, not at that time, but probably similar, something around there. But yeah, no, that is a I don't know if I want to call it sad, but that is, I feel like, a fact of life, and, like, especially in sports, that if your production reaches a certain level, your level of shenanigans is allowed in a way to kind of go with that. But if your production starts to narrow down a little bit, you got to knock some of that stuff off too.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's okay that you do all of that stuff, because really, to be a good human, or whatever you want to say, you don't need a lot of that stuff. But, it's unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know how you want to word it or how you want to look at it. We can have that discussion on social media. Give us your feedback on that too. But that's one of those things that if you're talented, you can get away with more.
It tends to get overlooked.
People will look past it. It's the nature of the beast. Again, I'm not saying it's good, but at the same time, it's like, well, I don't really want to pay you this many $1 million, but I know that this guy over here is going to have a lot less concern about it. He's going to pay you anyway. So do I want to pay you and just eat it and see if I can't fix the image, or do I want to face you? Right. So it's kind of in a way, a catch-22. You can't just get rid of somebody altogether. But I think that Draymond is starting to push that envelope of what his worth is, in a way.
Well, he's suspended indefinitely now, so we'll see how long that truly lasts and what he has to do to get back on the court.
Absolutely. Indefinitely, and really actually indefinitely in the NBA. There's one thing I've been a little bit happy with, because I've always thought that their suspensions were pretty light, and they're, anything that they do are pretty light. But recently, when they go to like, all right, you're suspended for like 3 games because you did awful things and you murdered an entire like daycare or something like that, like very slap on the wrist type of things. But when you get to like the second violation and they go with the indefinite one, like you look at a guy like Ja Morant, like he's still not playing.
No, he still has another 5-6 game. This goes back to last year. So
when you get to that, it's kind of like we'll give you a chance. We'll give you a second opportunity, even though it may be more than second, but they'll give you that chance. But if you mess up that time, the book is coming flying your way. So you better be ready to have take up knitting or something, have a hobby to do, because you're not playing basketball for a hot minute.
Knitting. That'd be an interesting hobby to take up.
Well, everybody got to do something, right?
Sure.
You know what you could do? You could take up brewing beer.
We could take up brewing beer.
There you go. So, that was our episode for Indeed Brewing Blue Dream Honey IPA. Find it at what appears to be your local liquor store, pretty much through all of Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin and North Dakota. But if you're outside of that, definitely hit us up on the social media. Maybe we'll try to, on our various road trip destinations, we'll bring with like a cooler of stuff for our own uses that we'll give to you as well. But yeah, if you have an idea for a future episode too, definitely reach out. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble. We're on all the platforms, Spotify, iHeart, everything. It's all out there.
It's everything. It's everywhere.
But
it's probably the thing. 2 guys and beer. It's the thing.
It is the thing. It is the thing. And probably the easiest way for anybody, if you think about the way that, how is it that you find it? How is it that you consume it? A lot of people have said, well, the easiest way for me is to be able to click on the link on Facebook or wherever it may be. So if that's kind of how you found it, make sure that you share it so that way other people can find it as well. So we appreciate those that have, and we want to appreciate everything, including my dad, who does that all the time, religiously does that. Anything we post out there, whatever, it's shared out automatically. I'm not even sure that he listens, but he at least puts the word out there to everybody out there. So we definitely appreciate that. So Shawn, what else you got?
Just hope everybody, get yourself an Indeed beer, get yourself any beer, have a happy new year. Now that we're in the new year, enjoy yourselves, drive safe, drink lots of beer, and have a good time.
And we appreciate you joining us here for episode 13 with Indeed Brewing. Until next time, cheers.